to the Intersection Magazine podcast. This week we're in Kenya, East Africa, Nairobi. And after attending the East Africa Com, one of my friends that actually is in the tech and innovation space suggested that I meet Felix Macharia. Now, Felix Macharia is actually the man behind Kotani Pay. He has is quite a wide array of experience in terms of places that he's worked. He's been to at First Nexus, EOS Nairobi, Institute of Blockchain Studies, Africa Digest Digital Asset Foundation, as well as, of course, having been trained at the university here. So our conversations are really going to be around the solutions that he's come up with for payments that the space that he's in. Querying him also about the ecosystem as it stands in Kenya. We're interested in getting some insights on lessons that we can learn as an ecosystem in Uganda, the country which I'm from, as well as, of course, leveraging his knowledge on how Kenya has done it, because Kenya is one of the four most important countries in terms of venture capital interest attraction, generation. So we are just interested in finding out what Kotani Pay is doing, what Felix Macharia is doing, and just pick his brain in terms of what we can learn, what we as other developers or maybe investors can learn from what they're doing in Nairobi. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you. So Felix, tell us a bit about Kotani Pay. What are you guys up to? What do you do? What problems have you identified? What are you solving for? Give us the whole enchilada.
Yeah. And thank you for the invite, Nicholas. So I lead the team at Kotani Pay, where we are building a technology stack that connects blockchain protocols, dApps, and fintechs on one side to local payment channels.
Okay.
So we're very much focused on the problem of onboarding users to the new web. It's Web3, it's known as Web3.
Okay.
But basically our current internet is transitioning to a model where it's more decentralized, where ownership belongs to the people who are creating value on it. And our focus is on how Africans, including even Africans who don't have smartphones, can transition to this new type of internet.
Okay. You mentioned several interesting ideas. Of course, you said Web3.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what's different. How many iterations? You want to call them iterations? Have we had of the web?
Yeah.
And what makes Web3 interesting, and why should we be involved?
Yeah. So there've been three main ones. The first one was static pages back in the 1999 and early 2000s. So basically, just had a page where you will post whatever it is that you do, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. We do this, we sell this, and then somebody will contact you offline. And then we had Web 2, which was more of the interactive web, where I could not only post to my users could post back to me. And that then created this whole boom that we saw with social media and the sharing economy. So Airbnb, Uber was sort of like birthed out of that.
Okay.
And then finally we have what we're calling Web3, which is we realized along the way that we are creating so much value on Web2, but the value only goes to a few owners. Okay. So basically the people behind these companies, they end up being obscenely rich. We keep on talking about income inequality. We keep on talking about ownership of that data. Like they own our data, they sell our data, we are the product. And so Web3 is how can we use blockchain infrastructure, which was initially actually meant to disrupt the financial system, to distribute ownership to the people creating value on these platforms.
Okay. I also I'm curious because of looking at your past employment history. What have some of these past places that you've been? What do they inform in terms of your current level of skill right now? What you're solving for? I'm curious. Like First Nexus, what did you learn there? What were you doing for First Nexus, EOS Nairobi? I'm interested also in like your time at the Institute of Blockchain Studies. What were you learning there?
Yeah. So at Fast Nexus, we were really just focused on fourth industrial revolution technologies, right? So this was back in 2016. There was a lot of writing and research into how these technologies are accelerating and converging. So, if you go back in time, we're probably talking about steam engines and the second industrial revolution, talking about the first industrial revolution and so on. But like the fourth industrial revolution was bringing in blockchain, AI, robotics, IoT, and all these technologies that people are building on today. And these technologies are not only developing and accelerating, they're also converging with each other, right? And so that was what we were focused on, and we were looking at how can we use these new technologies to build tools of wealth creation on the continent. Of course, it was very clear to us at the time that the winner in among a good starting place, at least for us here on the continent, was blockchain. And the reason for that is it's a permissionless technology, right? So for me to do any AI stuff, I need to have like a lot of data. I need to feed this data to algorithms. I need basically a lot of computing power, and it's not a great start. It's not an easy starting point for startups. Perhaps that has become easier over time. But with blockchain, you could start today. You could download a wallet, you could participate in a community, you could engage with other people around the world. And so it was a very easy place to start. And therefore, I transitioned from Fast Nexus to the Institute of Blockchain Studies, where I was a researcher, right? So I was checking out how is blockchain being implemented, at least on the continent, around 2017. We had an ICO boom, and we had, I think, Bitcoin getting to $20,000 for the first time. And at that point, it was very clear to us that there were limitations to proof of work as as a technology, and the things that are coming up called proof of stake blockchains. The first one being EOS, which is a decentralized proof of stake blockchain. And so we ended up being a node validator, meaning we were processing transactions for the EOS blockchain and a couple of other blockchains like Icon and Telos and the likes. And that taught us a lot about the inner workings of blockchains. Eventually, what we realized is, and this is what brought us to Kotani Pay, is there is a gap between what the benefits of the technology in terms of traceability, instant payments, affordable payments, and what we have on the continent. And so we set out to bridge that gap with Kotani Pay.
Okay. What about your work at Africa Digital Asset Foundation?
Yeah, Africa Digital Asset Foundation, and I'm still a member of that foundation. Was established by a great guy, Marvin Colby, out of Bahamas, and he now is resident of the continent. But the focus was a lot on building legal frameworks and standards around this new technology, blockchain technology. So we realized that it has the potential to disrupt not only the financial system, but a lot of the other things we do. How do we set standards and frameworks that make sense for the continent?
Okay. Speaking of standards and legal issues, I've noticed that there's almost like there's a divide between sub-Saharan Africa and Northern Africa in terms of I guess you could talk about cryptocurrency adoption. It's almost like a dead area. Do you know any reason why this is happening?
Yeah, it's probably the Sahara, but what happened is, I think the North African countries tend not to be democracies in that sense, right? So the kind of approach they took towards cryptocurrencies was more of ban cryptocurrencies. And so if you ban a technology, people tend to be fearful about, investing their time. If I'm a developer, I'm not going to invest my time there. If I'm an investor, I'm not going to invest my time there. And so you find that what we're getting now from North Africa is a lot of AI startups. So it's very possible that North Africa, Egypt, and other countries, I think you saw the Tunisian AI startup that was acquired, will end up being leaders in the AI side of things. For the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, we had issues with our financial system. There was a sense of democracy, and we had a lot of youth that were connected and exposed to the internet. And so these guys came across blockchain technologies. Again, they're permissionless, so they could engage with them as long as they had an internet connection.
Okay, cool. Now, I noticed that some of the events you participated in, you were part of like the FFR remittances event. Tell me a little bit more about that and what role Kotani Pay, what your tool plays in terms of remittances.
Yeah, so IFAD-FFR is a UN-based, funding facility that concentrates on remittances, especially to rural communities. So they look at how technologies around remittance, how various legal structures, or the whole ecosystem around remittance can impact the rural communities for development, essentially. Right? So you are in Nigeria, you have a relative of yours that is in the US. How do we make it easier for you to get funds so that then you can develop your local community in Nigeria? So it so happened that for Kotani Pay, we have 3 products, and one of the products is an SMS wallet targeted to rural communities that don't have smartphones. And the basic premise is blockchain technology as a transfer tool, right? So humanitarian organizations leverage blockchain technology and stable coins to send funds to end users who have SMS wallets or USSD wallets. And then the users can cash out to mobile money, which is the role that the tech stack does. So like connecting blockchain protocols to local payment channels. So we became a part of IFAD-FFR because of our role within the humanitarian aid community.
Then I also noticed you talked about tokenization. Could you highlight some of this? I noticed you talk about world assets, providing liquidity, lowering investment minimum, increasing fractional ownership, automated ownership, and transparency, as well as immutable records. So kind of just, feel free to talk about which one you want to talk about, but just I wanted a bit of a highlight about tokenization of the benefits.
Great. So one of the benefits of, again, blockchain technology is that you can take assets in the real world and make them tokens on a blockchain network. And that then means that these assets are liquid. Liquid means they can move around, they can be easily transferred, they can be easily exchanged on a blockchain. The most successful one has been the tokenization of US dollars. And the reason for this, I think, is the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. It's used in most trade finance transactions, but its availability is it's low in most countries. So like in Kenya right now, we are facing a USD shortage, and creates all kinds of problems. You can't import medicines, you can't import raw materials, you can't do all these things. So tokenizing dollars, which some companies have done, so like Tether is a good example, and Circle is a good example, and you could compare the two and have advantages and disadvantages, but they have been able to tokenize USD and make it available on a blockchain so that people in Africa can actually access USD, whether you're a business or you're an individual, you can access USD and use that USD for whatever purposes you need. So like whether that's savings or using it to buy things online, or like in the case that we have seen, at least with one product that we give to businesses called the stablecoin settlement solution, having the ability to import raw materials from abroad, having the ability to send funds to other people abroad, right? So I think last year it was something like $18 trillion that was processed by stable coins. That's bigger than Visa. Visa was $14 trillion. MasterCard was, I think, something lower, maybe like $6 trillion. So that has been the most successful form of tokenization. It's possible to tokenize other assets. So that it's possible to tokenize gold, it's possible to tokenize precious metals, and this is a trend that's only growing, in Africa. And then with tokenization, you extend it to something called real-world asset finance, or real-world asset DeFi. And this is being pushed by funds like Goldfinch or Maple Finance. Very interesting funds, probably should be visitors of this podcast. But they have been able to do something like $100 million in loans to various African fintechs and various African companies. So basically you have a global pool of investors that's putting in stable coins in a pool,
Mm-hmm.
and those stable coins are extended to KYC'd customers, mostly companies, that are dealing in the continent. So Tugende, for example, in Uganda, has been a beneficiary of one of these loans. Pesesha and others here in Kenya have been beneficiaries of these stablecoin loans.
Okay. By the way, congratulations! I found out that you also Kotani Pay became a digital public good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit more about what that means. I know the issue of public goods from other studies, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with the open source movement.
Okay.
So basically, you find a concept that works, you work on it internally. There are two routes to take. One is you could decide to patent the product and have it owned by the company, and that's more of a Web 2 mindset. The other one is to open source it and let people build on it, and that's more of a Web 3 mindset.
Okay.
So we're part of the UNICEF Crypto Innovation Fund. They were very gracious. They at least took us through the program, and we were able to open source some of our work, at least on the USSD side.
Okay. I'm also wondering about just today actually I was reading through I think it was Twitter, and apparently the Chinese yuan has overtaken the dollar in terms of usage for cross-border payments. What implications do you think this has? Some people are even talking about the dollar being replaced as a central world currency. What are the dynamics? What's going on? And how does that play into the cryptocurrency environment?
Yeah. So we live in a world today that's post Bretton Woods. So after the Second World War, there was a world order that was established where the US dollar was the reserve currency of the world, and all countries decided to at least in one way or another, peg themselves to the US dollar. And that's why we transact through the US dollar. Over time, because of the political aspect, the weaponization of the US dollar, the massive printing by the Federal Reserve Bank, a lot of people have felt like this dependence on the dollar is limiting their growth it's limiting the growth of their economies. And so there's been a movement towards doing direct exchanges. Okay. So in the case of China and Russia, deciding they will directly exchange in their own currencies instead of using the US dollar as an intermediary. But there was also the growth, at least from Bitcoin's launch in 2008, of private currencies. Okay. And so the kind of world we live in today is one where there are various money ecosystems. The cryptocurrency world, for example, has $1 trillion that's locked in that world. And now we are seeing a lot more people, including China, pushing their currencies to be more widely adopted and more widely accepted. Though I think some of these things are overblown. To some extent, 60% of reserves today are still USD. Yes. A lot of the transactions still happen in USD. And so it's a wait and see kind of situation where if the US allows regulation around stable coins, it still might have the upper hand, because even in crypto world and in most of these other transactions, trade finance transactions today, the USD is still the leading currency. But that is dependent on US policy globally.
Now, in one of our episodes, we talked about FTX and some Bankman-Fried. We wanted to talk about this was the second largest exchange after Binance. Did you feel the effects of that on your work? Or did this affect the ecosystem in any way?
Yeah, it did. So last year we processed $11.8 million, and this quarter we have processed $8.2 million. Okay. This quarter alone, right? And I think part of the reason why last year's numbers were affected was because it started with the whole Terra Luna collapse. Okay. And then FTX was caught up in a lot of those trades. They had a massive hole from Terra Luna. Okay. And one of the ways it affected our business is we were doing a lot of algorithmic stable coins initially. We have fiat-backed stable coins like USDC, USDT. We have algorithmic stable coins like Terra was one and CUSD was the other. We're not directly involved in the Luna ecosystem because we didn't like the fundamentals. We felt like it was kind of a Ponzi scheme. We were directly involved within the CELO ecosystem with CUSD, which is, according to me, a more stable coin. But just the fact that it's an algorithmic stable coin affected that particular market. And I'll say that we are still going through a lot of those effects. A lot of dominoes have fell since Terra Luna, and we're still feeling the effect of that 2 years or so later.
Okay. Is there any way we can insulate ourselves from that? Is because you'd think that if because it's these are decentralized. That am I asking the right question here?
No. You. So I think in the case of FTX, it was centralized, right? Because it's an exchange owned by Sam Bankman-Fried and his friends, and you're fully trusting Sam Bankman-Fried and his friends. I think if anything, it has proven that model to be, flawed. Because whether you look at Ethereum or you look at Bitcoin network or you look at the Uniswap and some of the decentralized platforms, they still are very much alive, right? There's still a lot of value that's locked within those ecosystems. Those ecosystems have not collapsed for years. So we had these centralized entities that came into the blockchain and crypto ecosystem and took up all the oxygen from the room. So they're talking about FTX, centralized, Celsius, centralized. Terra Luna, to some extent, you'll argue, is decentralized, but it was really centralized around Doc One and his friends. And so and this brings me to that thing of regulation, which is like, if you want to be a centralized entity offering these assets, you need to be regulated. I totally agree with what is happening now in terms of I find a lot of people are complaining about the SEC regulating crypto entities, but some of these crypto entities are just like centralized entities in the crypto ecosystem, and they're the biggest causes of risk to consumers and to the financial system. So they need to be definitely regulated.
Thank you very much. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground in terms of what Kotani Pay does. Of course, also talking about some of the experiences that you've had and building on the knowledge that you had in your previous workplaces. We've also talked about the fourth industrial revolution. We've covered blockchain technology. We've covered tokenization, opportunities for remittances and Kotani's role in that. Then, of course, the services that you provide. Now, in terms of people trying to, is there possibilities, for example, for people to get a stake in Kotani Pay? Is there opportunity for partnerships?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are definitely opportunities for partnerships. So we contribute broadly to the ecosystem. So whether it's for developers, we work a lot with developers on our various APIs, but also just like a general contribution towards. So like one of the things we are doing in Kenya, and maybe we'll extend this to the rest of Africa if it works well here, is we want to establish a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization owned by a community of developers. We will seed that DAO with some funds, and the focus will really be on blockchain development, because I believe like the way to transform Africa is through the skills of African youth. So we will focus a lot on blockchain development. There might be some aspects of AI as well, AI development and funding some of those developments. We work broadly with news outlets and other people who are trying to get the word out, because I think it's important for people to understand the technology and differentiate it from scams, whether it's the Bitcoin mining scams that are in Africa or the other centralized entities that are bad actors within the ecosystem. And finally, we also partner with organizations. So if you're an organization that's looking for USD or USD equivalents, we can provide that through some of our products.
Okay.
If you're a Web3 company looking to launch in Africa, we can definitely help you with our API. And if you're a humanitarian organization looking to disburse funds via stablecoins, we can do that through our USSD solution.
Okay, thank you very much. We'd like to give our guests an opportunity to kind of give us a rough idea where we can find them. So give us your socials.
Yes, so the socials is at Kotani Pay on Twitter, or myself at Felix Macharia _ on Twitter.
Okay.
We're also on LinkedIn as Kotani Pay and Felix Macharia Kotani Pay on LinkedIn.
Okay, thank you very much, Felix Macharia, for being our guest today. And we hope that we can probably engage at a later stage, maybe talk about changes that have taken place, and I'm sure growth that have taken place across the continent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.